And now our next session looks at how investment and policy can accelerate the vision that we have been talking about all morning. Get ready now for a discussion on how the UAE is cultivating its next generation of healthcare national champions. Please welcome to the stage Khalifa Hajeri, CEO of Emirates Growth Fund, in conversation with the Shahad Mahdi, Secretary General of PHRMAG. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Khalifa, for joining me today in this chat.
Hear me well?
I think so.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining our session as well. So let's start on a high note. What is Emirates Growth Fund's vision in deploying strategic investment in healthcare in the Emirates?
Thank you very much for having me, and it's good to be here with everyone. I look forward to meeting as many people as possible today. So at the Emirates Growth Fund, we look at healthcare as an area that we're very, very excited about. It's an area that we believe has now evolved more than the public service sector that it needs to play, and is really transitioning and morphing into a layer of, infrastructure and strategic infrastructure for the nation and for any nation that is really growing its healthcare. At the Emirates Growth Fund, we value this. We see healthcare as an area where we would like to invest capital into. And we look at our country as a nation that has now reached a stage of sophistication when it comes to healthcare businesses. We're excited about very prevalent themes that the healthcare industry is now facing, from chronic disease management, preventative healthcare, precision medicine, how tech and AI are being embedded in these businesses. So we see a wonderful opportunity for us that we're very excited, specific in healthcare, I would say, here at the UAE.
So as an advocate for SMEs, from your perspective, what does it take for a local player to become a national champion?
Clinical capability and operational capability are the two things that we really dig into and look into when we are analyzing healthcare businesses today. But it doesn't end there. Is how are these two components are also being integrated? And then that becomes the product of that business. And it becomes a sign of how this business can grow and deliver outcomes. And the outcomes of these ingredients being in the right place and being built well are usually a trusted facility. It has a strong reputation. And finally, it's consistent and reliable. These are the soft ways of describing how we think about where these businesses become very interesting for us. And as founders, they are the engine of these businesses, right?
Absolutely.
So we believe a lot of these opportunities will not only come from large-scale healthcare institutions, but they will come from the smaller, medium-sized enterprises, which is exactly where we are focused at the Emirates Growth Fund. Because these are the businesses that are usually the backbone of any economy, and the healthcare space is no exception to that. So that graduation or elevation of mid-market management teams, we have the utmost motivation to help them grow, because that's where the real capture of upside will come in healthcare going forward for us in the UAE, as we build what is probably the most important thing about healthcare, which is your own sovereignty when it comes to it.
Definitely. So I think we touched on the notion of companies. Let's look at the macro level. Healthcare in the UAE is a priority, not only from a social impact standpoint, but also as an economic driver. what is the intersection between policy frameworks and investment strategies to deliver a sustainable healthcare economy?
A policy is usually the North Star.
Absolutely.
Policy sets the vision. Policy thinkers, creators, and crafters develop that vision, of which then smart businesses and founders connect to and understand how I can build a business around that North Star. So it's very important to have those ethos being set from policymakers, because they in many ways become the foundations of how these businesses grow and tackle real problems that need to be addressed. So I think the role is absolutely fundamental, and in many ways, policy sets the tone, right? It sets the tone, and have become, especially here in the UAE, have become a great role model, right? By clearing out hurdles, making business as easy as possible, almost laser focused to do that and deliver that on a day-to-day basis. Growth equity or capital in general can only really work in a meaningful way if that foundation is there, and I believe here in the UAE we have it.
That's amazing. You touched base on how the UAE is a role model. So I want to hear from you. What do you think healthcare trajectory looks like in the Emirates, and what role does your organization play in it?
I think the UAE now and the healthcare businesses in the UAE are just growing at unprecedented scale. And I think the inclusion of AI, I think, is something that's going to shake all these businesses. I think there's going to be businesses that maybe didn't look too apparent or easy to be built and fostered 2 or 3 years ago will now look like really targetable, addressable business problems that founders can build. And with our support and how we look at this is we want to be the first call for these founders. We want the founders to focus, in their businesses, in their craft, but we want to bring the other part of the toolkit, which is how do we think about institutionalization of these businesses? How do we think about governance? How do we think about making them more robust? How do we think about regional expansion, deepening their management benches? These are all part of a toolkit that not every founder has from day one. And we hope that we'll be able to provide that as a dedicated and undistracted growth equity investor here in the UAE.
That's amazing. Look, I think we started on a high note. Let's end on a high note. If you could give one message to the founders, and I know founders are what you're truly passionate about, what would that message be for anyone who is finding and scaling in the Great Emirates?
I think we heard it in the beginning of the day with His Highness Sheikh Nahyan bin Barak, and it was very clear the role and the passion that the nation has for healthcare. So I can't think of many places around the world that really values healthcare as a sector and as a philosophy in general, and there's so much enthusiasm to crack it and make it better every single day. So in many ways, I think founders here can look into that support and can bank on it to always be there. And not in words, but in action, right? I think we think about how the foundations have been laid out for founders to build their businesses clear of hurdles, leadership support across the board, and becoming a test bed in many ways, right? If you think about the Genome Project that was conducted by Abu Dhabi, nothing of that scale had been done at the time.
Absolutely.
And nothing had been done in that scale that included a public and private partnership, which is almost like the Holy Grail when you think about healthcare. So there's a lot of clear examples of how healthcare business and founders can feel the support and rely on the foundation. And capital has always been one of our strongest assets. And that is apparent in the number of investors in the UAE and in the region. And you tie all that up together, we at the Emirates Growth Fund, I think we have a wonderful and a unique opportunity to unlock businesses that at that middle stage that can grow on to the next stage. So we're very, very excited about what the next few years will look like, and specifically when it comes to the healthcare space.
Thank you so much, Khalifa. It was amazing to learn about your passion towards SMEs and founders and your organization's great mission in the UAE. It was a pleasure to have this conversation, and thank you guys for tuning in.